Shalom, this is Beit Bamidbar Messianic Outreach. My name's Gene, and this is our Wednesday evening Bible study. Today is the 22nd of April, 2026, and we are going to be looking into a little bit more on Shavuot. Um, there's been no end of confusion with how to count the dates, and so I wanted to walk that through for our Shavuot enjoyment. So let me go ahead and we'll get started with the bulletin, make the announcements that we need to do. There we are. And then we can get started. Oops, come on. Come on, you can do it. You can do it. There we go. All right. I had this posted up and realized to my chagrin I had the wrong week on the dates, but I think I got it straight this time. So um had to fix that real scrambled like. Okay. Um, this coming Shabbat is April 25 or 8 ER 5786. The date on our bulletin is set for the Sabbath when this is going to be used at the congregation. So, um, okay, we do meet on Shabbat at the Idaho State Veterans Home. The address is there at 8:30 in the morning. Um, in Post Falls, Idaho, you are welcome to come. It's open to the public, and you are just come on down, enjoy. Okay, there we have the Shabbat Shachrit, the morning prayer service, announcements, discussion of the weekly Parsha, and our reading for the week. We get a double portion, Achrei Mot and Kedoshim, and the items to read here are on the bulletin. And of course, continually pray for the peace of Jerusalem. And on the other side, next week's reading is week 31 and more, and it's up here on the bulletin. What to read? Okay, Wednesday evenings at 6:30 is our normal online Bible study. So if you're reading this right now, you've made it on safely. So upcoming events, we have things get really quiet pretty soon. There's a bunch of stuff next month. Rosh Chodesh, Sivan, and also Shavuot on the 23rd, a Saturday evening. The Feast of Weeks, the final day begins in the evening on May 23rd and then carries over into Sunday day, May 24th, where we have Shavuot, the Feast of Weeks, and Acts chapter 2. That's our big topic usually for this time of year. Okay, after that, things get really quiet. We're in harvest season, and so there are, basically, God's design was very agriculturally based, and so his special holy days kind of go to minimal Rosh Chodesh every month and during this time because it's harvest season. You should be out working, not taking days off. And that's going to continue into September, where we have Rosh Chodesh Tishrei, or Yom Teruah, the day of blasting, or traditionally Rosh Hashanah. And then we begin the high holy days at that time. So between now and September, it's going to be very, very quiet as far as special events on the calendar. So get out there and get your produce in and get your harvesting done during this time. Okay. Any questions, comments, rebukes as far as the bulletin is concerned?
No.
Okay, let's get up the next item we have. And let's see, bulletin. Got too many things up here. Okay. Um, so a lot of discussion on Shavuot. There's a huge discussion on when it actually occurs, when we begin counting, and when that ends. And part of it has to do with tradition assigning a date um, for when Shavuot would occur, and versus what the Bible actually says. So this is just sort of a short discussion on when the date occurs, and then I also have a handout that you can download if you wish from the website. Just as a quick I threw it together just to lay out the days of the week, and how many weeks you have to count, and um, so, anyways, let's get started with this. So, today we're talking about counting the weeks. Okay, Shavuot, or Pentecost in English, is the Lord's feast, not a Jewish or Christian feast. In other words, God said to do this in Vayikra, Leviticus 23. Adonai said to Moshe, "Tell the people of Israel the designated times of Adonai, which you are to proclaim as holy convocations, are my designated times." And the first one on the list is Pesach, and then from Pesach you get to Shavuot immediately following that. Um, so, so whose feasts are they? They are the feasts of the Lord. Okay, it's not a there's Jewish culture in how you celebrate these things, but there is this historical culture. But the actual impetus for keeping these days as holy is God's command, and that's what we need to follow. Okay, so new Yiddish. So when is Shavuot? One of the reasons I wanted to do it this way is that there is just a plethora of calendars out there, and they have a lot of different dates as when you start counting and when you're done counting. And we need to go back to the text. We need to go back to the scriptures. Um, so again, on the verse 15 in Leviticus 23, it says, "From the day after the day of rest, that is, from the day you bring the sheaf for waving, you are to count 7 full weeks. Until the day after the seventh week, you are to count 50 days. And then you are to present a new grain offering to Adonai." Okay. So now, if you just read that on its face, you're first going to go, "Well, that's a little confusing." But when we look at the dates on a calendar, it actually lays out rather easily. Okay. Um, so if God wanted to a date certain, like for example, the 6th of Sivan, why would you use a confusing formula to calculate the date of Shavuot? And here's our problem with our calendar, God's calendar, compared to the traditional calendar. Amongst the Orthodox, they assign the date, the 6th of Sivan, as the date for Shavuot. Okay, for Pentecost, Shavuot. It's an assigned date. Now, nowhere in the scripture do you have an assigned date, but the practice, the tradition, is to assign the date. And if you look at your traditional calendars, your Jewish calendars, you'll see this on the 6th of Sivan. You'll have it listed as Shavuot for that day. And again, it's not what God said, but it's what tradition has assigned. Okay. Um, I did notice this year. Any questions, comments, rebukes so far? That's okay. Feel free to speak up if something pops in your mind to ask. Okay. It's interesting in this year, 2026, in our English calendar, or 5786 in the Hebrew calendar. The days of the week match up with what we read in the biblical narrative. By that I mean in our Gospels, the days of the week, Yeshua's arrival in Jerusalem, the Passover evening, his arrest, his trial, his crucifixion, his burial, all on Passover day. Remember, it starts at sundown. So from the at the beginning of the Passover meal, after sundown on our Wednesday on our week counting, and go through all through Wednesday evening and all that, and he's dead and buried in the tomb just before sundown on that same day, the 14th of Nisan or 14th of Aviv, biblical counting. So all that's done in that very busy day, one very long day. And then he's 3 days and 3 nights in the tomb. He resurrects shortly after sundown on what is Saturday evening after the end of the Sabbath, the weekly Sabbath. And then that night is where you begin counting the Omer. Mm-hmm. So that very night that he resurrected is after Saturday is over, you begin counting the Omer. It's a feast of first fruits. Okay, and you begin counting the Omer at that time. And that's that sheaf offering of barley, and every that's going to be offered that night. And why barley? Because barley is the first grain to come ripe, and so it's the first thing brought as the first fruits. The feast of first fruits is that night, I should say. Shavuot is 7 weeks later. Okay, so you have 7 weeks you count out, and after that, again, and it's going to be a Saturday night. After the Sabbath, after the seventh week, you have that extra evening, called Shavuot, on a Saturday night evening, and it carries over into Sunday day in our counting, and which in this year is the 18th. Sorry, maybe I should read my text here because I'm getting ahead of myself here. Okay. Yeshua had his Passover on a Wednesday evening, the beginning of the 14th of Aviv, which is Nisan in common language, was arrested that night, tried and sentenced to death the next morning, still on the 14th. He was crucified and died that afternoon, and was buried in the tomb close to sundown, all on the 14th, which is now Thursday afternoon in our reckoning. He was in the tomb 3 full days and nights, from Thursday evening through Friday, through Saturday until after sundown, and resurrecting after the sundown Saturday evening on the 18th of Aviv. That same night is Yom HaBikarim, the Feast of First Fruits, and begins the counting of the Omer, which will conclude at Shavuot, the Feast of Weeks, 50 days later. Okay. So if you start counting the day after the weekly Sabbath, after Passover, okay, you end up with the beginning of the counting, which is Yom HaBikarim, the first Feast of First Fruits. Note, neither Pesach, Passover, or Chag Matzot, the Feast of Unleavened Bread, are stated to be a Shabbat. They are holy days. The first and last day of Chag Matzot are a holy convocation. You shall do no regular work. But the term Sabbath does not appear in the description in the Bible. Thus, the only Sabbath that can be used is the weekly Sabbath ending the 18th. Okay. Then count sevenfold Sabbaths, and the evening after that seventh Sabbath is the beginning of Shavuot, the Feast of Weeks. Okay, so if you get out your traditional calendar, you can take a look at it, and if you count Saturday evening as the number for your counting, you can count 8 full weeks, and you have Shavuot-Pentecost exactly um, 7 weeks later. Okay, the day after 7 weeks. Okay. Um, Now, that might seem a little confusing, but that's basically how you count it. And any questions, comments, or rebukes on that?
No, it's fine the way I was heard it.
Okay, good. Um, because up here there is a plethora of alternative versions and views. So I felt kind of impressed to try to clarify this a bit. And so here we are. Okay. Um, One other thing I wanted to do is, for some reason, I was thinking maybe it'd be easier to count the weeks with a different kind of a graphic. And so I threw this together, and I don't know for sure if this is going to go over properly, but we can take a look at it. And what I did is laid this out by days of the week in our reckoning, English days, and Passover week. It begins on Wednesday evening by our reckoning. Okay, on Thursday is the crucifixion and burial. Friday is Sabbath evening, and let's see. So that's Passover week, and then you get to week one. You go through the whole week, and I think I did mess that up. Okay, no, first fruits is you begin counting the Omer. So that's the first night of the Omer. The first fruits, you start counting the Omer. And then you finish week one, it's going to be the Omer, the eighth day of the Omer. Week two is 15. Week three is 22. Week four is 29. Week five is 36. Week six is 43 of the Omer. And then week seven is a Saturday evening. Um, is the final Omer, and that's where Shavuot begins that night, Saturday evening, and then Shavuot day, Pentecost and Acts 2 all happen on the daytime following Shavuot evening. Okay, so I thought I'd put this together, and it sort of made sense when I was doing it. I don't know if this does that help explain things.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's better, but I think the people that you're explaining to need to understand what all the pieces of the puzzle are. A lot of people are confused as number one, they're confused about the Omer.
Yeah,
And then secondly, um, confused about first fruits and all the other aspects of it. Because especially
yeah,
when you're talking with a non-Jewish person that is totally unaware of Shavuot, and they're thinking Passover and Easter are one and the same, so they're looking at Easter being the
yeah,
so that's the only thing that I can think of as far, and I'm not quite sure how you would remedy that, to be honest with you.
yeah.
But that might be the only part that might be still confusing because it's not real. They have a mindset of a Gentile. What can I say?
Yeah, if you're not used to thinking of the day beginning at sundown,
All right.
it'll throw you off. And I think that's part of what the discussion is, part of what the issue is. And you just have to acclimate yourself. I guess that's why James said, what do you do with all these goyim who are becoming believers, and get them into a synagogue where Moshe is taught every week,
Mm-hmm.
because you have to learn um, enough of the shtick, if you will, to be able to uh, understand this and relate to it. So yeah, so I did this just as an attempt to try to explain, how do you get the counting to do this by and counting the each day of the Omer, um, where you where this is done. So, anyways,
I think for a start, it will be a good reference point and topic of discussion.
yeah, okay. Well, this is actually a very short session. Thank you for coming along. And God willing, next week I'll have. I'm still trying like crazy to get the font I need to decipher. I have all these notes on Devarim, but a lot of the notes are in a font that I had 2 computers ago,
Hmm.
and I can't locate the font to download it so I can get all that stuff into a readable. It looks really pretty with all these characters and stuff, but
Hmm.
it's not the text I'm looking for. So, God willing, if I can get that fixed, we'll get into Devarim and hopefully soon. So that will do. Well, thanks a lot for coming. God bless you, kids. Father, thank you for bringing us together and give us all a good understanding of your holy days and how they relate to us and how we follow them properly. Give us the ability to explain this clearly and in such a way that it's understandable by others. And again, thank you for giving us this time to hang out together. Hashem Yeshua. Oops, wrong thing.
Amen.
Okay.